We all noticed him. Same man, same spot, standing in the seasonal aisle near the back. He never bought anything. He never moved much. He just waited. My name's Jalen. I work closing shifts 2 or 3 nights a week at Dollar Tree. We just changed to a new layout. Corporate move, planograms, all that. So the seasonal aisle got pushed to the far end of the store past cleaning supplies and toys, right up by the employee hallway. It meant I was back there a lot, zoning shelves, pulling everything to the front, making it all look full even when it wasn't. The store got eerily quiet after 9. Register lights humming, cooler compressors ticking, that steady buzz from the ceiling fixtures that you stop hearing until you're alone. At first, after the remodel, it felt kind of nice. Slower, predictable. The regulars came through, coupon ladies with binders, parents grabbing party stuff, older folks stretching Social Security. We'd do last calls over the speaker. We close at 10 tonight, and the crowd would thin to a trickle. I'd push my squeaky cart, one wheel always wanted to drift, down seasonal and face up foam pumpkins or plastic leaf garlands, then sweep confetti and price tags into a little pile with my foot and dustpan them up. The new aisle was long, a straight shot that ended in an end cap of helium balloons tied to a big tank. Beyond that was the employees' only door to the back hall. If you stood at seasonal and looked toward the front, you could see the cashier lane lights. If you stood at the end by the balloons and looked back, you were basically staring into the service corridor. He started showing up in mid-September of last year, always in the last hour before closing. Neatly dressed, buttoned down, slacks, carrying one of those green baskets like he planned to grab a couple things on his way out. He'd stand in seasonal and kind of exist there. Not browsing, really. Not comparing SKUs, not checking barcodes. Just planted. The basket would rest against his leg, and his eyes would be level with the shelf, but not on anything. First couple nights, I thought nothing of it. People zone out. People wait for rides. Guess he's waiting for Christmas to go on sale. My manager, Lourdes, joked the first week she noticed him. Maybe he likes the fake leaves, I said, because we all make dumb comments to keep it light. There's a lot of lonely that walks through a Dollar Tree. You learn to let it pass. But he kept coming back. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. Last hour every time. Same place. Same stillness. He'd drift a step or two if I was actively stalking exactly where he stood, then settle again like a coat on a hook. The basket stayed empty. He never asked for help. He never made small talk. He never followed me with his head when I pushed my cart past. Just that straight-ahead, eyes-up posture like he was looking through the pegboard and out the back wall. After a few nights, I realized he wasn't actually looking at product at all. His body was angled toward the back hallway. I started to notice where my body was in relation to his. The aisle was long enough that you could pretend you weren't sharing a space. I'd take a box cutter to a case of plastic pumpkins, dull blade catching on shrink wrap, and I'd feel him there like a piece of furniture you don't want to bump with your hip. The cartwheel squealed when I turned it. Price tags fluttered when the air conditioner kicked. He never flinched. Maya, who was on registers most nights, whispered to me one evening as I brought up a basket of returns, "That guy in seasonal? He was in the lot last night after we closed. Just standing by the cart corral. Didn't get in a car. Didn't leave. He waited until Lourdes walked us out." "You sure?" I asked. "I'm sure," she said. "He's not here to shop." It should have been nothing. We get all kinds. But the new layout made seasonal a choke point. The employee door was right there. To take out trash or hit the time clock, you had to pass that aisle. I started dragging out any task that kept me near the front. When Lourdes sent me to seasonal, I'd feel my stomach dip, like stepping off a curb in the dark. One night, 10 minutes to close, I took my cart down Seasonal and stopped halfway, giving myself distance. He was there, halfway between me and the balloons. No basket this time, hands loose at his sides. He wasn't facing the shelf at all, his whole body angled toward the employee hallway door like he was waiting for it to open. "Sir, we close in 10, I said, trying to keep it light. He didn't nod, didn't look at me. The light above him buzzed a hair louder than the others. It does that sometimes when they're old, and he stood in it like it was a spotlight. I backed my cart out and went to the front. "He's back," I told Lourdes, keeping my voice low. She glanced past me, then up at the clock. "I've seen him before," she said. "He doesn't buy anything, just hangs around back there. We'll make the announcement again." She got on the mic and did the closing line. "Thanks for shopping. We're closing at 10. Bring your final purchases to the front." Maya caught my eye, eyebrows raised. 9:55. I took a broom to Seasonal and made a show of sweeping. He didn't move. It's weird how someone can be still and still feel like forward motion. When you're closing, you learn to read intent in micro gestures, the customer who's actually going to grab something versus the one moving air. He was the latter, but directed. My broom bristles hissed on tile. He didn't so much as blink. We locked the front doors at 10 on the dot. It's normal to lock with a few stragglers still finishing. Front doors lock from the outside, and we walk the aisles before killing lights completely. Lourdes did a slow lap, calling a cheerful, "We're closed for the night," toward each aisle, and I watched her shadow stretch and collapse as she passed end caps. She reached Seasonal and stopped a couple feet from him. "Sir," she said, professional but firm, "we are closed. You can come back tomorrow at 8. Nothing. The air felt tighter. She looked over at me and gave me that small nod toward my radio, the signal to call it in. I lifted mine. "Maya, just hang tight a second." Lourdes tried again. "Sir, we're closed. I need you to head to the front." His head turned, slow, like a door on a hinge that hasn't been used in a while. Not mechanical. Just deliberate. His eyes were past us, on the employees only sign down the short stretch of hall. Then he walked, not toward the front, toward the back. "Hey," Lourdes said, stepping sideways to put herself between him and the hallway, one hand out low like she was talking down a dog. "You can't go back there." He didn't stop. I moved before I thought about moving. I wheeled my cart fast, the bad wheel shrieking as it pivoted, and shoved it across the mouth of the aisle to block the corridor. Plastic storage bins rattled. He kept coming. "Sir," I said, "you can't go back there." For the first time, he spoke. "I know," he said. His voice was normal. Totally normal. "Don't follow me." And then he shoved me. Not a tap. Not a brush. A full-body, shoulders-forward drive that caught me off balance. My hip smacked the cart. The squealing wheel jumped sideways, and 2 stacks of plastic shoeboxes slid off the top and hit the floor. He cleared the cart in a single step and shouldered the employee's only door. It's supposed to stay latched, but the remodel had the closer set too light and maintenance hadn't fixed it yet. The door jumped, then gave. Lourdes swore and lunged for it. I half fell, half ran after him, my thigh stinging where the cart caught me. "Don't!" he barked without looking back, and I heard his shoes on the concrete of the back corridor, fast and sure. Lourdes hit the code panel with her thumb and missed once, hands shaking, then got it. The alarm cut, then ramped right back up when the exterior door at the end of the hall opened. The last thing I saw was his neat shirt disappearing into that dark, then the slam of the metal door to the outside. We locked down like we'd been trained. Front doors stayed locked, lights stayed up. We stayed inside. Maya called 911 while Lourdes gave them the basics. By the time the cops pulled into the lot, it was empty. 2 officers walked the back corridor, checked the exterior door, looked at the latch that always sticks. They pointed at the cameras, and Lourdes had to say the thing out loud we all already knew. The seasonal aisle has blind spots. The new layout moved a shelf into a camera cone, and nobody adjusted the angle yet. You could see him at the end cap for a second, a clean quarter turn of his shoulder, then nothing. The back hallway cam caught a shape moving, then the door flash. No face to pull. They took statements. They told us to walk in pairs to our cars. "You can file a no trespass if you see him again," one said, pen clicking. "If he comes back, don't engage. Call us." I went home that night on adrenaline and couldn't sleep. I kept hearing the small chorus of peg hooks hitting metal. I kept seeing the way he turned his head, how practiced it felt, like a person who'd played out a motion so many times it wore a groove in their body. I kept replaying my own reaction. My thigh bloomed a purple-yellow bruise and made stares awkward. I told myself it was just a guy who shouldn't have been where he was, that we'd scared each other, that it was over. For a few days he didn't show. Seasonal flipped to more fall stuff, fake hay bales that shed dust, glossy ceramic pumpkins that clinked when you nudged them together. I felt silly for still checking the end of the aisle before I turned down it. I walked the back corridor fast and kept my radio up near my shoulder, thumb on the button like it was a lifeline. Lourdes propped the employees-only door with a doorstop during business hours so it wouldn't stick, and so no one had an excuse to shoulder it again. A week later, my shift ended at 10:15. We did the usual routine. Count drawers, sweep the front. Maya waved from behind the glass as I stepped into the night. The lot was mostly empty, just our last few cars in a crooked line. One other car sat a few spaces over from mine. No lights on, engine off, dark windows. I kept my head down and hit unlock on the key fob. I opened my door and, against my better judgment, glanced across the row. He was in the driver's seat, hands on the wheel, posture perfect, staring straight ahead, not at me, not at anything specific, just forward, as if the aisle didn't end and the back hallway continued right through the glass and into the night. The break room door was supposed to lock automatically when it shut, but almost every night, I'd find it cracked open just a few inches. The worst night, someone was on the other side. I was working nights at Dollar Tree, part-time while I was finishing school. I'd been there about 3 months, mostly closing shifts. We had a small team, 2 or 3 people at most, and sometimes I'd be in the back alone while the others handled registers. The break room was tucked at the very end of the back hallway, right by the stockroom. It was nothing special, just a table, a vending machine, a microwave, and some lockers for our bags. Our routine was simple. Zone shelves, sweep up, take returns to the back. The break room was always locked when we left. The door had a heavy latch that was supposed to click shut behind you, and you needed a key to get back in. But a few weeks in, I started noticing that every time I walked past it near closing, the door would be cracked open. Never wide, just 2 or 3 inches. The first few times, I just pushed it closed and made sure it latched. I figured somebody didn't pull it all the way. But then it kept happening. I mentioned it to a coworker once, and she swore she never left it open. She was strict about locking up, always double-checked before leaving. We laughed it off, telling ourselves the latch was probably loose, or maybe the door frame was warped. Our manager just shrugged when I brought it up. As long as nothing's stolen, don't worry about it. That was the kind of place Dollar Tree was. If it didn't cost money, it wasn't a priority. But the timing bothered me. It never happened in the middle of the day, never when the store was full of people, always late, always near closing. And it wasn't random. It was like someone was testing the door when no one was watching. One night, after hauling trash to the dumpster, I came back in through the back door and saw it again. Door cracked a few inches. The light was off inside. I pushed it shut, waited until I heard the latch click. I even tugged it twice to make sure. 5 minutes later, I came back with some returns, and the door was cracked again. That was the first night I felt real unease. I checked inside, but the room was empty. Chairs in place, lockers shut, nothing missing. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone had just been in there. A week later, it escalated. I was taking boxes down the back hall when I heard a faint scrape, like the legs of a chair being pulled across the tile. The sound came from behind the break room door. I froze, hand hovering over the handle. Nobody should have been in there. I knocked. No answer. I turned the key and opened it. Empty again. But this time, one of the chairs was pulled away from the table, just slightly angled, like someone had been sitting there. I told one of my coworkers about it, and she didn't laugh. She admitted something similar had happened to her, that she swore she heard rustling in the break room once, and when she went in, the vending machine was still humming like someone had just used it. After that, I couldn't ignore it anymore. I started feeling watched whenever I walked that back hall. You know the sensation, like someone's eyes tracking you, even if you can't see them. I kept my phone in my pocket and stayed up front whenever possible. Neither of us wanted to linger back there alone. Then came the night that really rattled me. I was coming from the stockroom, rolling a cart, when I saw the break room door standing open halfway. Not cracked, wide. The hall was dark except for the exit light above the back door. I stopped cold. Inside, the light was off, but I heard the faintest sound. Not breathing this time. It was softer, almost like shoes scuffing against tile, then fabric shifting as though someone was adjusting in a chair. I flicked the switch by the doorframe and stepped in. Nobody there, but the chair that had been tucked neatly against the table during my last break was now pushed back. Not far, just enough that it looked used. That night I told the manager flat out, "I think someone's sneaking in here." He brushed it off. We'd see them on camera. That was when I found out the break room camera had been down for maintenance for weeks. No one had thought to fix it. Another coworker backed me up, saying she once grabbed her purse and swore she saw someone crouched by the lockers. When the light came on, no one was there. She chalked it up to being tired, but hearing my story made her pale. We both started avoiding the room unless we absolutely had to go in. We'd wait for each other if possible. But you can't always avoid the back hallway, not when you're working a closing shift. One night, near the end of my route, I was walking past when I saw it happen with my own eyes. The break room door, which had been sitting flush, slowly eased itself shut, like someone inside had just nudged it closed. My stomach dropped. I was alone in the back. My coworker was up front ringing out the last customer. I stood there frozen, staring at the door. Then I forced myself to move. "Who's back there?" I called out. No answer. The only sound was the soda machine humming faintly through the door. I grabbed the box cutter from my pocket, hand shaking. I pushed the door open. Dark room. I flipped the switch. The light buzzed to life, and I heard the faint scrape of something shifting behind the lockers. Before I could react, a man lunged out. He was wearing an old, filthy Dollar Tree vest, like it had been stuffed in a locker for years. His eyes were wild, his hair greasy, his whole body reeking of sweat and stale smoke. I stumbled back and nearly dropped the box cutter. He didn't swing at me, didn't say a word, just bolted. He barreled past me so fast my shoulder smacked into the door frame. My coworker screamed when she saw him tear down the hall. He hit the stockroom exit door with his shoulder, and it swung wide as he disappeared into the night. We called the police. When they searched the place, they found proof he'd been there for weeks. Bedding stuffed inside one of the lockers, piles of food wrappers shoved into a plastic bag, cigarette butts hidden in the bottom of the trash can. He'd stolen a key somehow, letting himself in after hours, and he had been using that break room as his own hideout. For a while after, I felt better knowing he was gone. I figured they'd caught him, or at least scared him off. But 2 weeks later, I was walking that back hall again near closing. Same routine as always. And when I passed the break room, my heart nearly stopped. The door was cracked open again, just a few inches. I stood there staring, debating whether to push it shut or keep walking. I realized that was the worst part, not knowing if someone was behind it again, or if the memory alone was enough to keep me afraid. To this day, every time I work a closing shift, I avoid that hallway entirely. Because even if the room is empty, that cracked door feels like an invitation I don't want to answer. The lot should have been empty. Every car was gone, every light buzzing overhead, except for one sedan sitting dead center, engine rattling, headlights off. The driver hadn't moved in over an hour, just a shadow behind the glass, waiting. My name's David. I've been working closing shifts at Dollar Tree for the last year and a half, usually 3 or 4 nights a week. By the time we finish cleaning and counting down registers, it's always late. The store feels hollow, and stepping out into the cool night usually feels like relief. The lot is wide open, lined with those bright buzzing pole lights, so I've never really felt unsafe. But that night was different, because one car wouldn't leave. Closing shifts follow the same routine. We clock out together, walk to our cars in a small group, and call out good nights before scattering in different directions. Usually the last engines fade quick. The silence that follows is comforting, the sense that the day is officially over. But when I walked out this time, I noticed a car sitting dead center in the middle of the lot. Everyone else drove off, but it didn't. None of my coworkers drove a sedan that color or shape, and I would have recognized it. It sat idling with its lights off, faint exhaust drifting from the tailpipe. The windows were fogged just enough to blur the inside, but I could still make out the outline of someone in the driver's seat. When my eyes lingered too long, the silhouette seemed to shift, almost like they were angled toward me. At first, I brushed it off. Maybe they were waiting for someone finishing a late shift at one of the other stores. Maybe they were resting before a long drive. I didn't want to overthink it. I got in my own car, locked the doors, and pulled out my phone to scroll for a few minutes before driving home. But every time I glanced up, the other car was still there, still idling, the driver still sitting perfectly still. 10 minutes passed, then 15. My phone screen dimmed and locked itself. The sound of that faint, steady engine carried across the lot, louder now that everything else was quiet. My coworkers were gone. The building was dark, and yet the car hadn't moved an inch. The driver hadn't adjusted the mirror, shifted in the seat, or even lifted a hand. Just stillness. The longer I sat there, the heavier the air felt. The lot suddenly seemed smaller, like that one vehicle had pulled the edges in. I kept checking my side mirrors, my rear view, half expecting them to roll up behind me. The way they were parked made no sense. Off-center, directly facing the store doors, as though waiting for someone to come out. That's when I noticed it clearly. The figure wasn't looking forward at the wheel. They were turned slightly sideways in the seat, body angled toward the entrance. From where I sat, It looked like their head was tilted, locked on the Dollar Tree doors I'd just walked through. The engine gave a low sputter, then steadied back into its soft idle. The car itself didn't move. My stomach sank. I locked my doors tighter, checked the handle, and pretended to shuffle through my bag. I thought about calling my manager, but the store was already closed, and nobody would answer. For a second, I considered getting out, but something about the way that driver sat, motionless, waiting, told me not to. Finally, I started my car. The headlights swept across the lot, throwing light over the hood of the other vehicle. Still no reaction. No flicker, no flash of a phone screen inside. Just that rigid silhouette turned toward me. As I pulled forward, I saw it clearer. The figure was definitely angled, not casually slouched, not on their phone, but sitting stiff, turned deliberately in my direction. Their face was obscured in the glass, but I could feel it. They weren't looking at the road. They were watching me. That's when panic kicked in. My pulse jumped, hands gripping the wheel tighter. I looped toward the lot exit, trying not to look again, but as I swung past the last pole light, their car suddenly lit up. High beams, a blinding flash that filled my windshield, then dark again. 1 second, but it felt deliberate, like a message. I see you. I didn't hesitate. I floored it out of the lot, tires squealing against the asphalt. For a brief moment, relief washed over me, until I checked my mirror. Headlights burst on behind me. The once idle sedan roared out of its space, pulling onto the road tight to my bumper. The next few minutes were a blur of panic. I sped down side streets, cut across empty intersections, but no matter how hard I pushed, the car stayed locked on. They didn't honk, didn't swerve, didn't try to pass. They just followed, steady and close, like a predator keeping pace. At one stop sign, I had to brake hard, and they came right up behind me. The impact wasn't loud, just a sharp jolt as their bumper tapped mine, enough to make my teeth clack together. That was the moment I knew it wasn't random. Whoever they were, they wanted me scared. And it was working. I blew through the next turn, cutting sharp until I reached a busier road. Streetlights, other cars, late-night traffic. I merged fast, praying for witnesses, for safety in numbers, and just like that, the sedan peeled away. One turn, and its headlights vanished into the dark. I didn't go home right away. I circled aimlessly for almost an hour, checking my mirrors, convinced they'd appear again. Only when exhaustion finally beat the fear did I pull into my driveway, headlights still on, pulse still hammering. By morning, I almost convinced myself it was over. Until I walked back outside to my car. Something was tucked under the windshield wiper. A folded piece of paper, damp with dew. I unfolded it with shaking hands, and in thick block letters it said, "See you after work." The engine may not have been running this time, but the message was clear. Whoever was in that car knew exactly who I was.